the grid, stand up. SBC, Black Elvis, Roddy, OG, it's wavy. Look, started from the bottom, so we off the grid. Tryna make it to the top, we soon live off the grid. Had dreams of making teams, I was just a kid. But we off the grid, yeah, we off the grid. On the come up, so we off the grid. Had dreams of the league, we was all just kids. And the bullets from the underground, they often miss. The podcast bringing light, so they don't call it quits. Now pass the rock, I'm open on the 10. They call me wavy in the red zone for the win. Then do your dance on them, raise the roof, we got the fans rolling. Catch a pick and then do it again.
Welcome to another episode of Off the Grid. I'm your host, the Commish, along with my boys, D-Dub and Roddy. What's up, fellas?
Doing all right, chilling. Excited. We got a goodie in store this week. Got a chance to chop it up with a pretty big figure in the New York football world, Coach Spags.
Coach Spags. Shout out to Coach Spags.
So, we got into some really heavy stuff about what's happening, how we've been dealing with it, how he's dealt with it with his athletes, and just excited to get into it. Former quarterback at his alma mater, Iona Prep. Collegiate quarterback at two different universities, Siena as well as Bryant University. Without any further ado, glad to bring to you Coach Joe Spagnolo, more affectionately known to the New York City coaching world as Coach Spags.
All right.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So with the unprecedented environment that we exist in, I thought it would be great to get the perspective of a head coach. So could you just talk to us a little bit about what kind of hurdles you've had to overcome and what it's been like as a head football coach trying to navigate this environment?
It has been. It's been the longest year of my coaching career, and I've had to wear a lot of hats. I've had to be a counselor, had to be an advocate. Recently, I was a lobbyist, and just be there for the kids right now because that's what they need. They need a good influence and good role models in their life because a lot of their life has been torn away from them. And that's the nature of COVID. COVID is a culture killer. You raise kids to shake hands, you raise kids to make eye contact. I'm Italian, so we raise our kids to hug and kiss. And now that stuff's not allowed, So there's a lot of things going on right now in the world that kind of breaks the norms and breaks the trends. I know the culture of Iona, we're a family and we're around each other a lot, and the boys are never 6 feet apart. I'll tell you that much before all this, and now they have to be. So it has cut culture in the household, in the schools, in the business world, in every aspect of life, and we're all dealing with it in different levels and different spectrums.
So Coach Spags, it's Roddy. I had a particular question about how you and the guys at Iona, the other coaches or whatnot, how were you guys able to keep the players engaged during COVID with, guys maybe mentally tapping out or wanting to physically tap out? How were you able to keep those guys focused and tapped in?
But for us, it's been a 10-month journey where, March hit and no one really knew what was going on. And, obviously the world shut down immediately. We didn't see the boys for a couple months. Everyone learned how to use Zoom. Everybody learned how to use Google Meet, and the world became very virtual. We did virtual combines to help get the boys exposure. We did virtual workouts to keep the boys in shape. We had virtual meetings to make sure that they weren't losing their minds. We did everything virtually we could, but that has its limitations. And luckily around June, we were allowed to start interacting again. We're allowed to get workouts outside. The school did a great job supporting us. We built an outdoor gym. So throughout the summer, our boys were allowed to lift and be around us at least, with the season being an unknown, but at least they were able to get back to some sense of normalcy from that standpoint with all the COVID protocols obviously in place.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? So with all that being said and all that work that was being done, a fall schedule looked very promising at that moment, didn't it?
The fall came and went. We thought we'd get an opportunity. We didn't. The Catholic League did the best they could by giving us a fall season of 7-on-7, which brought the team together a little bit, let us compete a little bit, got the kids in shape, got them a little bit of film to help the college process a little bit. But that's what it was a little bit. And 70% of our country was able to play high school football. And we were in that 30 percentile, and our kids were hurting. And, they've been very patient.
Well, we've heard that there was discussion of a spring schedule coming. Do you think that is really possible, that they will allow these kids to have a shortened season that would be dynamic in helping them move forward?
Ironically, we're doing this tonight. Our school got approval today by the Board of Health to be able to play a high school season in the next month or so. So, I'm smiling more than I have in a while, because I know there's a end in sight, and I know there is an opportunity for these guys to reach the goals they wanted to achieve, and all those months of hard work, there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. So we're super excited about that.
So Coach Spags, being a head coach at Iona and, dealing with all of the difficulties that Corona brought to you and your team, what were some lessons and things that you were able to take away from all of the bad that happened over the last couple of months?
And it's been an amazing journey. I've learned a ton about politics. I've learned a ton about government, things that as a football coach and as somebody in the real estate world might not have had a huge interest in previously. Now I've learned a lot about that through this process. So I am thankful for that, because there was a lot of knowledge to be gained. But it's been 10 months for the books, to say the least.
So what are some of the things that you did to manage the emotions around things just not being practical and guys' normal routines being interrupted in such an unprecedented way?
It's a loaded question. Every kid's got a separate journey. Every student athlete has a different journey that they're on. We fortunate enough at Iona, we had a ton of kids that had early commitments. So those guys had hurdles in terms of getting to see schools that had offered them and making an educated decision. Some of them had to walk around campus with a FaceTime with a football coach. They couldn't even get a real tour. We had a young man actually from the Harlem Jets program, Corday Sidnor, who committed to a school without even getting to see it, because he felt the timing was right and he needed to commit at that time. Luckily, since then he has been able to get out to Purdue University. But so he went through a lot of things as far as that goes. We had other young men that had opportunities that they got squeezed a little bit, because college coaches is kind of a buyer's market and they had to make really fast decisions. Then we had the guys that needed senior film that had a good junior year but needed more. We had the guys that are up and coming 22s and 23s that should feel like they should be scholarship kids, but they don't have film yet. We had the 21 seniors that didn't get their senior year, so they didn't get their last shot to make an impression on college coaches. So every kid had a different journey and a different experience. Football is a sport that's played in the fall, so senior year matters. In a lot of other sports, spring sports especially, if you don't do it by junior year or you don't do it in the summertime, it kind of weighs itself out, where our guys thought that they were going to be able to go to college camps. Our guys thought they were going to be able to have coaches come during the live period and watch them work out. Our guys thought they were going to have a senior football season, and all of that one by one, literally month by month, got taken away from them. So it was a constant struggle with a new bottom, a new floor with this thing. And until recently, there really was no positive news at all either. And that's for most of these student athletes. The ones that found homes, they had a silver lining and they had some positive. But the ones that are still searching, or the ones that had to make a decision on the fly, they haven't had the same experience that some of the less than lucky guys have had. So that's been a real challenge. It's really been a by person, by student situation. And I've tried my best to kind of just have one-on-ones and say, all right, where are you in the process? What can we do? Can we get you a preferred walk-on? What can we do? We did get some traction with the 7-on-7 stuff, because we were allowed to practice a little bit without contact.
So Coach, that was some great information. In closing, I have a question that's really geared towards the youth football, the grassroots of football in New York City community. If you could sit down the parents and the kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade range, who are interested in playing varsity football, what would you tell them are the keys or the things that they really need to focus on? From a head varsity coach, we'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Academics is everything. You mentioned Corday. Corday ended up being a 3-star athlete, but Corday also had a 90 average and a 1200 SAT, and he could pretty much pick any school he wanted to go to. But for the most part, our guys are not 3 and 4-star athletes. They're just normal student athletes that work extremely hard, that love football, and that do the right things, in the classroom and whatnot. If you are not a 3, 4, or 5-star athlete, your grades are going to be your catalyst. That's what's going to get you into college. It's going to be the first question they're going to ask, and it's going to be the first question that's going to stop the process for you. So, I mean, if you want to get a head start on probably 50, 60% of, the athletic world and the football world, go get a 90 average, go become an honor roll student, because that opens up doors for you. You set your floor so high. You become from a situation where you got to hope someone gives you an opportunity to, you're picking what opportunity you're going to select. So, I think that's the biggest thing with our guys. The most part, they all have grades. They've worked hard in the classroom. They've worked hard on the SAT, and they've done what they've needed to do to get them to that point in the recruiting process. Now, as far as football itself goes, I think iron sharpens iron. So, get into a good youth program that's competitive, that are producing kids to great high schools. Don't just play 3 months a year, work at it. We're in a disadvantage in New York State. You go down south, they're playing football 12 months a year. You start timesing that by 8 or 9 years, these kids have played a lot more football than the kids in New York. Now, there's a lot of things that are picking up, the 7-on-7 stuff. I'm working with UA Under the Lights to start a spring 7-on-7 up in our neck of the woods to start getting K through 8th graders playing football in the spring more. So there are some more grassroots programs starting to kind of push you in that direction. But I think that's an important part of this thing, not thinking that football is 3 months a year, that it's, when you get to the high school level, it's a 12-month-a-year commitment, and you might as well start that in 6th and 7th grade so you get used to it. And a lot of the programs, there are a lot of great New York City programs that they do have spring football, and they are working with their kids a lot. And I love that about New York City. It hasn't really hit Westchester that much. A lot of kids play lacrosse and baseball in the spring, which is great too, because they're out there competing. But New York City coaches have made an effort, especially at the youth level, to get kids playing in the spring and keep them engaged in the sport of football all year round. I think that's a great thing. I mean, Dana, listen, as coaches, we need to all practice what we preach. And we talk to kids about adversity, and we talk to kids about never giving up. You're down a couple touchdowns. And I didn't know if we were going to get football back. I really didn't. Like, people think I had a master plan or something like that. I'm not that smart. What I did know is that every kid in my program was going to know that I'm trying my tail off for them. I'm fighting for them, because that's what I taught them to do. And I was going to practice what I preached, So we went into this not having any idea we'd be able to make the impact we did. It worked out that way, thank God. But my number one goal was that our kids knew that we were going to leave everything out there for them, and we did. I'm exhausted.
We'd like to thank Coach Spags for coming on the show today, dropping some gems, being able to speak with us about New York City football and his experiences with COVID and Iona. Some of the things that he says were a little inspiring, and we were glad to have him.
Absolutely. Once again, we appreciate the viewer community for tuning in. Please like, please subscribe, share it with your coworker. Coming soon, presidents from the youth football programs. You guys are next. We want to hear from you.
Yep.
Yes. BCOM TV.
The game, we wasn't from the same hood. The ball kept us off the block, had to try to remain good. Started from the bottom, so we off the grid. Trying to make it to the top, so we live off the grid. Had dreams of making teams, I was just a kid. Oh, we off the grid? Yeah, we off the grid.